Mamsa Paraja Kacharya Stutar Satishimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jam Vishnupad Paramamsa Paraja Kacharya Stutar Satishimad. Sringa Guru Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananti Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Premsiko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. New Dwarka Dham Ki Jai. Their Divine Lordships Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish Ki Jai. Their Divine Lordships Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Shrimati Subhadra Ki Jai. Their Divine Lordships Shri Shri Gonitai Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Prashadam Distribution Ki Jai. Jamunamaya Gangamaya Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Gaur Pramananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to all the summer devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to all the summer devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to all the summer devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories, Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Guru Shri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, Chapter 6, text number 17. Swa Dishnyam Pratapan Prano Swadishnya Pratapan Prano Bahish Cha Pratapati Aso Bahishcha Pratapati Aso Evam Virajam Pratapams Evam Virajam Pratapams Tapati Antar Bahi Puman Tapati Antar Bahi Puman Swadishnyam Pratapan Prano Bahishcha Pratapatyaso Evam Virajam Pratapams Tapatyantar Bahi Puman Swadishnyam Pratapan Prano Bahishcha Pratapatyaso Evam Virajam Pratapams Tapatyantar Bahi Puman Swadishnyam Pratapan Prano Bahishcha Pratapatyaso Evam Virajam Pratapams Tapatyantar Bahi Puman Bhata Bhata So. Tisatatam Prano. Tisapata Bhata So. Pratamam. Avacharama Petapan. Jesus Pratapan Pano. Ticha Tatapachaso. Namatam. Namatam Vipaman. Tistam Pratapan Prano. Patischa Pratapatyaso. Ivam Pratam Patam Pams. Patana Naviditaman. Vaishnavis. Sadisham Pratapan Prano. Patischa Pratapatyaso. Evam Parajam Patams. Tapaptyantir Bahi Puman. Swadishnam. Radiation. Patapan. By expansion. Pranaha. Living energy. Bahi. External. Cha. Also. Pratapati. Illuminated. Aso. The sun. Evam. In the same way. Virajam. The universal form. Pratapan. By expansion of. Tapati. Enlivens. Anta. Internally. Bahi. Externally. Puman. The Supreme Personality. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The sun illuminates both internally and externally by expanding its radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding His universal form, maintains everything in the creation, both internally and externally. Please repeat. The sun illuminates both internally and externally by expanding its radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding His universal form, maintains everything in the creation, both internally and externally. Purport. The universal form of the Lord, or the impersonal feature of the Lord, known as the Brahma Jyoti, is clearly explained here and compared to the radiation of the sun. The sunshine may expand all over the universe, but the source of the sunshine, namely the sun planet, or the deity known as Surya Narayan, is the basis of such radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is the basis of the impersonal Brahma Jyoti radiation, or the impersonal feature of the Lord. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita 14:27. So the universal form of the Lord is the secondary imagination of the impersonal form of the Lord. But the primary form of the Lord is Shama Sundar, with 2 hands, playing on his eternal flute. 75% of the expansive radiation of the Lord is manifested in the spiritual sky, Tripad Vibhuti, and 25% of his personal radiation comprehends the entire expansion of the material universes. This is also explained in the Bhagavad-Gita for 1042. Thus, the 75% expansion of his radiation is called his internal energy, whereas the 25% expansion is called the external energy of the Lord. The living entities who are residents of the spiritual as well as the material expansions are his marginal energy, tatashta shakti. And they are at liberty to live in either of the energies, external or internal. Those who live with the spiritual expansion of the Lord are called liberated souls, whereas the residents of the external expansion are called the conditioned souls. We can just make an estimate of the number of residents of the internal expansions in comparison with the number of residents in the external energy, and may easily conclude that the liberated souls are far more numerous than the conditioned souls. Om Jnana Tamanandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshus Unmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamayam Dadati Swabadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vanchakalpa Tubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bevicha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. The sun illuminates both internally and externally by expanding its radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding his universal form, maintains everything in the creation, both internally and externally. So today's title for the class is Impersonal Form, if there's such a thing. Impersonal form. Actually, even in the word impersonal, there is the word person. And if you just add an apostrophe after the I, it says, I'm personal. You see? So I'm not only a person, but I'm personal, which means I act personally. I act lovingly, devotionally. So this is what we're going to try to understand here, Krishna's impersonal form, which is going to be described here. So I found it interesting, and I'll share with you throughout the class here, how we're trying to understand Krishna and his energies. And the analogy used today is the sun, or the personality Surya Narayan, which is actually an incarnation of Krishna. So Krishna comes himself as an incarnation to give us a wonderful analogy of the sun, which is actually himself. And it's also interesting that we're discussing the impersonal feature is being discussed from Lord Brahma to Narada Muni. And it's recommended in the second canto that if you want to be absorbed in the Brahma Jyoti, one is recommended to worship Lord Brahma. So here Lord Brahma is talking about, who this impersonal thing is, but yet if you want to really become absorbed in it, you should worship Lord Brahma. So the class we're going to talk about at the beginning how Lord Brahma was questioned by Narada in the beginning of the last chapter, which we know that were brought about because of the questions of the sages. And they brought about the, Sukadeva Goswami being inquired by Parikshit Maharaj. And then they're quoting now this narration of Narada to Lord Brahma. And so that's going to be very nice, explained. And then I'll expand on the purport in some of the references Srila Prabhupada gave to the Bhagavad-Gita to help us understand what this internally and externally situation means. And then I'll show three other analogies. Like there's the sun, but there's also a king, a gardener, and a businessman. So in the same way, we could try to understand that. So we'll also end with this analogy of the sun not only helps us understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but it also helps us understand ourselves. So there's a nice analogy, telling us misled living entities as Tatashta Shakti, what we should be doing. So let's go to the first references from the 5th chapter of this canto, and verses 1 and 2 explain the original questions, just to kind of give us a background. So the verse is, Sri Narada Muni asked Brahmaji, O chief amongst the demigods, O firstborn living entity, I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Please tell me that transcendental knowledge which specifically directs one to the truth of the individual soul and the super soul. So this is Atma Tattva, understanding who we are and who the Supreme Lord is. And the second verse from 252. My dear Father, please describe factually the symptoms of this manifest world. What is its background? So that's what we're trying to understand, the background. How is it created? How is it conserved? And under whose control is it all being done? So we thought Lord Brahma was the controller, but actually he's saying, I'm not the controller. So this is where the analogy of the gardener comes in. He's like a gardener, but we'll get to that. So in this purport to this verse from the last chapter, Srila Prabhupada says, transcendental knowledge regarding the soul and the super soul includes knowledge of the phenomenal world and the basis of its creation. In the phenomenal world, three things are factually observed by an intelligent man: the living being, the manifest world, and the ultimate control over them. The intelligent man can see that neither the living entity nor the phenomenal world are creations of chance. The symmetry of creation and its regulative actions and reactions suggest the plan of an intelligent brain behind them. And by genuine inquiry, one may find out the ultimate cause with the help of one who knows them factually. So this is an important point. Prabhupada talked in the previous verse in the purport about the importance of a spiritual master or a guide, or as we talk about today, a coach or a mentor. So we need these things. Everybody needs that. And then I'd like to go next to the verse Srila Prabhupada quoted in the purport, the Bhagavad-Gita. He quoted 1427, Brahmano hi pratisthaham amritasya vayasya cha sasvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya kantikasya cha. I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So there's a nice purport there, and I'll just read a paragraph. Actually, 2 paragraphs from that purport. Prabhupada quotes this verse from the Vedic language. Rasovai sa rasam hi evayam labdva nari bhavati. When one understands the personality of Godhead, the reservoir of pleasure, Krishna, he actually becomes transcendently blissful. That's from the Taittiriya Upanishad. The Supreme Lord is full in 6 opulences, and when a devotee approaches him, there is an exchange of these 6 opulences. The servant of the king enjoys on an almost equal level with the king. And so, eternal happiness, imperishable happiness, and eternal life accompany devotional service. Therefore, realization of Brahman, or eternity, or imperishability is included in devotional service. This is already possessed by a person who is engaged in devotional service. So just to bring this point home even more, Srila Prabhupada ends the purport with this paragraph. Devotional service to the Lord is very simple. One should always engage in the service of the Lord, should eat the remnants of foods, stuff offered to the deity, smell the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, see the places where the Lord had his transcendental pastimes, read the different activities of the Lord, his reciprocation of love with his devotees, Chant always the transcendental vibration. So that's actually being personal. We're personal is that we reciprocate with devotees nicely also. Not only the deity or take advantage of Krishna. And then Prabhupada says also, we chant always the transcendental vibration. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And observe the fasting days, commemorating the appearances and disappearances of the Lord and His devotees. By following such a process, one becomes completely detached from all material activities. One who can thus situate himself in the Brahma Jyotir, or the different varieties of the Brahman conception, is equal to the Supreme Personality Godhead in quality. So here, you don't need to worship Lord Brahma. Srila Prabhupada's saying that you just engage in devotional service, and it's so easy. Just what we're doing now. This is what we're engaging in. We could understand Krishna and his energies. So the next verse that Srila Prabhupada quoted from the Bhagavad-Gita is 1042. And this is from the 10th chapter. And it leads to the 11th chapter. So this is like the verse leading to the 11th chapter of Krishna's all-encompassing universal form. So the verse is, Atava bahunaitena kim gyatena tvarjuna vistabhyaham idam krishnam ekam sena stito jagat. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. So that's a nice purport there, but I'll just read the last paragraph. And Prabhupada says, how can one attain the highest devotional perfection of association with the Supreme Personality Godhead has been thoroughly explained in this chapter. Srila Baladev Vidyabhusana, a great acharya in the disciplic succession from Krishna, concludes his commentary on this chapter by saying, Yat Chakti Lisat Suryada Bhavanti Tu Ugrate Jasa Yadam Sena Dritam Vishvam Sa Krishna Dasame Vichate. From Lord Krishna's potent energy, even the powerful sun gets its power. And by Krishna's partial expansion, the whole world is maintained. Therefore, Lord Krishna is worshipable. So in the verse, actually talks about how the sun maintains everything internally and externally. And I was trying to figure that out. So there's some references in the Srimad Bhagavatam that kind of gives us an insight. And of course, Srila Prabhupada talks about it in the purport, internal spiritual energy and external, the material energy. But the sun also helps us in internal, within and without also. So there's a verse from the 11th canto. Just as the same material elements exist within and outside of all material bodies, similarly, I cannot be covered by anything else. I exist within everything as the super soul, and outside of everything in my all-pervading feature. So Prabhupada says in the purport there, excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. This is from the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Purport. Since the Lord is within everything, one might think that the Lord is divided into pieces. However, the word anavrita, or completely uncovered, indicates that nothing can interpret, disturb, or in any way infringe upon the supreme existence of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. There is no actual separation between the internal and external existence of the material elements, which continuously exist everywhere. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is all-pervading and is the ultimate perfection of everything. And then there's another reference I found from the remembrances of Srila Prabhupada's disciples. And this was from, I'm not sure who, there were several people in this one. But one of Prabhupada's disciples was saying how, Prabhupada's saying we can't really see anything without the help of the sun or some form of electricity. We're actually dependent. So here he says, inwardly also the light of consciousness and the super soul allow our eyes to see. And in that sense, we are totally dependent on Krishna. So he's saying how Prabhupada was pointing out that everything that we take for granted, like vision and all other things, we're totally dependent on Krishna. And actually we can't do anything independently. And Prabhupada says this, that our disease, Maya, exists not in the world around us. The existence of Maya is only within the mind. Maya is nothing but ignorance of Krishna's personality. When one forgets his personality, then that is the conditioned state of Maya. Therefore, one who is fixed upon him both internally and externally is not illusioned. Our vision is incorrect. When we are Krishna conscious, we see everything as Krishna's energy. This is so important, this point about understanding what Maya is and how we're ignorant of Krishna's personality. And this is why impersonalism is so much preached against by Srila Prabhupada. And there's a nice quote from a letter I'd like to read that Srila Prabhupada wrote to Rai Ram. We have to save the world people from the misconception of voidism and impersonalism. The Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. All impersonal calamity thou hast moved. These lines were presented by me to my spiritual master, and he was highly pleased with me. Let me follow the same principle, and my Guru Maharaj will bless me. I have always my good wishes and blessings for you all, because you are cooperating in this great mission. Thank you. Your ever well-wisher. And there's a similar letter to Tamal Krishna. And Prabhupada says, whatever literature we are presenting, follow the footsteps of Rupa Goswami and the others. There are also Govinda Ganamrita. So the more Govinda Ganamrita, or the glories of Govinda, will be spread, the more the nonsense of impersonalism and monism will be defeated. It is said, Kaivalya Nistaraka. This means the Goswamis deliver us from the danger of being lost in the philosophy of monism. As I wrote in my prayers to my spiritual master, impersonal calamity thou hast moved. So this impersonalism is a calamity for the spiritualist. So we're seeing how there's a person behind everything. So let's see here. There's one last verse for this, internally and externally. This is also from the 11th canto. And this is the verse. With a pure heart, one should see me, the Supreme Soul within all beings and also within oneself, to be both unblemished by anything material and also present everywhere, both externally and internally, just like the omnipresent sky. So just see the sky is internal, externally also. So here's another analogy that we talked about as a king trying to understand Krishna. And this is also from Bhagavad-Gita 9:4, where he says, by me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. And Prabhupada in the purport there says, which relates to the class today, of course all this does, just as the sunshine is spread all over the universe, the energy of the Lord is spread all over the creation. And everything is resting in that energy. Yet, one should not conclude that because he is spread all over, he has lost his personal existence. To refute such an argument, the Lord says, I am everywhere, and everything is in me, but still I am aloof. So here's the analogy. For example, a king heads a government, which is but the manifestation of the king's energy. The different governmental departments are nothing but the energies of the king. And each department is resting on the king's power. But still, one cannot expect the king to be present in every department personally. That is a crude example. Similarly, all the manifestations that we see and everything that exists, both in the material world and in the spiritual world, are resting on the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The creation takes place by the diffusion of his different energies. And as stated in Bhagavad-Gita Vishtabhyaham idam Krishnam. He is everywhere present by his personal representation, the diffusion of his different energies. So that actually refers to the verse we just read that Prabhupada quoted, was Bhagavad-Gita 10:42. So here's another analogy. As a gardener, this is from the second canto, last chapter, 5. I create after the Lord's creation by his personal effulgence, known as the Brahmajyoti. Just as when the sun manifests its fire, the moon, the firmament, the influential planets, and the twinkling stars also manifest their brightness. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada brings up this another analogy here of the gardener. So this is very nice. So this is Brahma's clearing up the wrong impression by less intelligent people that, that he creates everything and he's the creator. But actually he's saying that he creates after Krishna creates. And this is example. So Brahma, he's quoting Brahma from the Brahma Samhita. Yasha prabha prabhavato jagadananta koti koti shavasesha visurati vibhutta binam tad brahma niskalam ananta sesha bhutam govindam aripurusham tamaham bhajami. I serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, the Supreme Lord, whose transcendental bodily effulgence known as the Brahmajyoti, which is unlimited, unphantomed, and all-pervasive, is the cause of the creation of unlimited numbers of planets, etc., with varieties of climates and specific conditions of life. So there that is. So here's where he brings up another analogy. One should not expect the Lord to create like a blacksmith with a hammer and other instruments. The Lord creates by his potencies. He has his multifarious potencies, parasha shaktir vividhaiva shriyate. Just as a small seed of a banyan fruit has the potency to create a big banyan tree, the Lord disseminates all varieties of seeds by his potent Brahmajyoti, swarochisha. And the seeds are made to develop by the watering process of persons like Brahma. Brahma cannot create the seeds, but he can manifest the seed into a tree. Just as a gardener helps plants and orchards to grow by the watering process. The example cited here of the sun is very appropriate. In the material world, the sun is the cause of all illumination, fire, electricity, the rays of the moon, etc. All luminaries in the sky are creations of the sun. The sun is a creation of the Brahmajyoti, and the Brahmajyoti is the effulgence of the Lord. Thus, the ultimate cause is the Lord. So here's the analogy from the 4th canto, 24th chapter, where it's described that he's like a businessman. Of course, it describes there very similarly in the purport, and it uses the analogy of the sunshine, which I won't read because we've been talking about that quite a bit. And he also quotes this same verse from the Bhagavad-Gita that we quoted, 9:4. And then here, towards the end, he says, here's a common example. A successful businessman may have many factories and offices, and everything rests on his order. If someone says that the entire business rests on such and such a person, it does not mean that the person is bearing all the factories and offices on his head. Rather, it is understood that by his brain or his energetic expansion, the business is running without interruption. Similarly, it is the brain and energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that carry on the complete manifestation of the material and spiritual worlds. So Prabhupada quotes that other verse from the Bhagavad-Gita, which he says is how we can understand the mystic power that Krishna has in everything. So he quotes the verse 7:8. O son of Kunti Arjuna, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om and the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and the ability in man. So this is how you can understand the impersonal feature of the Lord also, by seeing these things, is a taste of water. So Prabhupada quoted this term, Tripad Vibhuti, in this purport. And we'll see in the next 3 or 4 verses after this, Prabhupada again brings up this word Tripad Vibhuti, which is very nicely described. And I'll go to the 22nd verse. Prabhupada quotes that. From that personality of Godhead, all the universal globes and the universal form, with all material elements, qualities, and senses are generated. Yet he is aloof from such material manifestations, like the sun, which is separate from its rays and heat. So, Prabhupada talks about this. Here he mentions here, the Ekapad Vibhuti manifestation of the Lord's energy of the Lord is just like one of the many mistresses of the Lord. This Ekapad Vibhuti is the 1/4 creation of the Lord. And the Tripad Vibhuti is the 3/4. So here Prabhupada's talking about the Ekad Bhuti is the material manifestation. And it's like one of his mistresses, by whom the Lord is not so much attracted, as indicated in the language of the Gita, Bina Prakriti. But the region of the Tripad Vibhuti, being a pure spiritual manifestation of the energy of the Lord, is, so to speak, more attractive to him. So therefore the Lord generates the material manifestations by impregnating the material energy, and then within the manifestation, he expands himself as a gigantic form of the Vishvarupa. So he actually revealed this Vishvarupa to Arjuna also, as showing that he is the source of these things. So Prabhupada goes on there, and he also quotes Brahma Samhita. And this is a nice verse. He says, the Supreme Personality God, Govinda, the one who enlivens the senses of everyone by his personal bodily rays, resides in his transcendental abode called Goloka. Yet he is present in every nook and corner of his creation by expansion of happy spiritual rays, equal in power to his personal potency of bliss. He is therefore simultaneously personal and impersonal by his inconceivable potency, or he is one without a second, displaying complete unity and diversity of material and spiritual manifestations. He is separate from everything, and still nothing is different from him. So it's nice. And also, there's the quotes I had about how Prabhupada talks about the Surya Narayan is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how explaining that he's driving 4 horses, pulling his chariot, and his name is Savita. And in the Gayatri Mantra, that's what we chant to the sun. Om Bhurabhuva Swaha Tat Savitur. That's the worshipful sun god. So, now we get to this section here. We talked about Tatashta Shakti, which is very interesting. And this is referring to the living entities. And this is a verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We'll read this and then I'll end after this. So here's the verse. It is the living entity's constitutional position to be an eternal servant of Krishna, because he is the marginal energy of Krishna and a manifestation simultaneously one with and different from the Lord, like a molecular particle of sunshine or fire. Krishna has 3 varieties of energy. So here it's describing how we are. So it's time to end class, Seva says. Okay, so I'd just like to wrap up here. So so we have to understand these analogies and lessons in life so that we can get out of this pada vibhuti, which is the material energy, and go to the tripad vibhuti and live in the residence of many liberated souls. So thank you very much for your kind attention. And I guess there's no time for questions or comments. So, All glory to Srila Prabhupada, all glory to Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.